It's an honor and a pleasure to be up with Cyrus of Newfound Glory, man.
This episode is brought to you by SJC Custom Drums and Gator Cases.
Hey, welcome back to another rundown. I am back at Brooklyn Bowl in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm here, and I am beyond thrilled to be here with one of my favorite drummers growing up and one of my favorite drummers now, Cyrus from Newfound Glory. What's up, dude?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Dude, this is so exciting, man.
Dude, exciting for me too. I've watched a bunch of your rundowns, and I am very, very stoked on how in-depth you get on the kit and everything about the kit.
Yeah, and we are doing hard-hitting journalism out here on the road. So
yes, very much.
The fans want to know, what is the over-under on the number of bands that have their name inspired by one of your songs, one of your albums, or otherwise?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna miss some, right? It's probably it could be up to a handful now.
All right.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's very flattering for us. Obviously, we started pretty much 30 years ago now, and tons of bands that we still look up to. That when we were starting, it was like, how do we model ourselves, not necessarily sound-wise, but just how to be a touring band, how to promote yourself, do all that. And then now a lot of that's come full circle. And it's people that are not only influenced by our sound, but like you say, literally by, I don't know, lyrics or song titles or whatnot, naming themselves after us.
And I say it as a joke, but it's not a joke, because I think you nailed it, right? Is like you came up at the genesis of the split of all of these genres, and you were at the forefront of this thing, and you were touring with bands that were kind of like pushing, and keeping that kind of rock on radio when there was like a huge changing of the guard happening.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of stuff happening in the scene, and, Warped Tour was such a vibe, and you guys were like kings of that. And I have to fanboy out, because I said I wouldn't, but I'm going to. I have like a list of like the top, kind of like road trip songs.
Okay.
Road trip albums where it's just like, I need to crush an hour. You know what I mean? And it's like, yours is always, I have an hour left in the trip. I just got to push through sticks and stones, man. It's like an untouchable. That's all rippers, no skippers for me.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
That's coming full circle, is to come and hear some of these songs today and sound check and just like hear them on this kit is a treat.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We go back to that era. That was like 2002, recorded that in 2001. Everything was starting to fire, all cylinders go with us. We had signed to Drive Through, which then became MCA. We were kind of taken under Blink-182's wing, and same management as them. We were in the studio with Neil Afron and just writing songs that we loved. And then the story is with My Friends Over You, one of our biggest songs ever, and I'm sure you've heard this before. It's one of those songs that came out last minute.
Right.
That it was literally the night before I started doing my drum tracks. Chad had this idea for a guitar riff and like a melody over it, and he had me help him like by singing the rhythm, and he did the solo. And I was like, dude, I don't want to do this. Is too much. Like, we just went through 11 other songs. I don't want to do this. And it ended up being our biggest song. And like, just so much on that record was just doing whatever we wanted at that time. And like, for me, pulling drum fills that like are reminiscent or inspired by bands you would never think of.
Right.
There's literally a Korn influence on our song Head On Collision on a fill going into the second verse.
Right.
And it's like, if you listen to the song I'm talking about on Korn, like, it does not sound like our song at all. But, that's what I grew up on. In the mid-90s, I was a guitar player going into drumming and took a lot of inspiration from those bands.
Yeah, it would be remiss to not mention the shirt that you have on, Silverchair.
That's right.
One.
That's right.
And, man, that album came out, and it was... I didn't even... none of us knew how young they were when they did that. You just thought that these were like some old mastered dudes, like,
exactly,
put together a really like cohesive, incredible album.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about those bands, because those weren't necessarily like a prototype for kind of poppy punk or like what you guys were doing.
Definitely not. So when we talk about Frog Stomp, for instance, and Silverchair, I got into them like most people in America. It was like 94. Tomorrow came out. I thought it was a great song. Then I started to realize, wait a second, these kids are young. Oh, wait a second, they're actually my age. And here we are, 3 kids that, won a radio contest, right, or something in Australia. And it's like, if they can write songs in their bedroom and become massive, then maybe I could. Ironically, I wasn't even playing drums at the time. I was still playing guitar. And so, it's just a huge inspiration of, okay, maybe there's hope for like these random just, kids in their parents' house, right? But then when I went into drumming, which was only about a year and a half later, and it was out of necessity because all of my friends played guitar. So I was the guy that was like, I guess I'll try drums. Of course, I'm going to gravitate to records like Frog Stomp and everything else from like that mid-90s. So it was like Rage Against the Machine or even Stone Temple Pilots or Metallica. I know you did Andy Hurley, you talked to him, and there was a huge Metallica influence. There is a big influence for me there. And of course, it's not going to be a direct, like rip-off of the drum beat from One in one of our songs or something. But with like Lars, for instance, I took the fact that he loves doing crash accents.
Yeah.
And not on the one, it's with his snare.
Right.
And I was like, I think that's cool. Maybe crashes aren't just for the ones. It's like wherever you kind of want to put something else. And then with Silverchair, it was just a lot of like, I felt like Ben Gillies was a drummer that was very much influenced by Pearl Jam and Nirvana. And so I was probably more into the guitar on Pearl Jam and Nirvana records, and then kind of realized the drumming and where that took other artists and took that influence for me. So Ben Gillies, the Frog Stomp influence for me was double, like hitting a double with your single foot, which he did. He had no double pedal, or he did, but it was way later. It was a single foot where he would do the like, gum, ba-da-da, ba-da, ba-da-da, things like that. And Dave Averizzi did that in Pearl Jam. And it's like, when I was starting to learn how to play drums, I didn't know how he did it. I thought he just smashed his foot down, and then you start kind of realizing things like that. So random influences everywhere.
Yeah, but I think that kind of is perfect because you were mentioning how you didn't play drums first. I think some of your early stuff was piano, right? And then guitar. There's a musicality in your drums that makes it fun. Like, you're not trying to get into like some sort of like theory box or whatever. It's just like, I'm trying to play a super fun part. You were doing things that were like way out of the box, like cut time, breakdown, stuff that I hadn't heard yet kind of on the radio or in those ways. So what kind of influences were you pulling from that were like specific to like some of that stuff, to the tempo changes and some of the fun beats and the breakdowns and stuff?
I think, you got to mention right around that time is when like Dude Ranch came out and Blink kind of transitioned from being the band that was just super fast punk rock to having some of these halftime things. But there's a lot of these emo bands that a lot of people don't know of, or still probably would never know of, even like a Jimmy Eat World. The things they were doing, there was like a mixture of cut time and double time. And the biggest thing with New Found Glory, and it's still true to this day, is it's always been about the guitar riffs, right? And the guitar riffs are iconic. And when I go to play the drums, as much as I want to do, I don't know, almost like a Domination Pantera, where it is the simplest drum beat in the world with a crazy, guitar riff, if I play to the guitar riff, there's rhythm in that alone, right? So a lot of times it's you get a guitar riff, you listen to a guitar riff, and then you try to kind of figure out what drum beat will work with that guitar riff. And if we go a little bit forward with New Found Glory to the Catalyst record, and you listen to All Downhill From Here, I love that song drumming-wise because if you listen to the whole song, you will hear me play, I think it's 3 or 4 different rhythms to the same guitar riff. Right? And that's actually came out of when we were writing that song. We were like testing different things. And so I was like, okay, I can do a fast thing. I can do an actual like staccato kind of off time thing. I could do a halftime thing. And I just busted it all out. And we literally made it a song, and it was super cool to be able to do that. But that's like a testament to how like with these guitar rhythms, they kind of have their own character. And if you want to support it, you support it. If you want to do something different, you can. But if you do play to the guitar, there's a heaviness that I think nobody else at the time was doing. And that's really what set us apart.
Yeah, and there was like a lot of, obviously the hardcore scene and the metalcore and post-punk scene was happening. So we were all going to like straight edge shows and getting in the pit with some super massive breakdowns. But it was fun to have a lot of that heaviness and like heft and some more playful music, because like a lot of that stuff was real serious.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
This episode is brought to you by SJC Drums, the custom drum company trusted by some of the biggest names in music. Whether you're smashing stages or just jamming in the garage, SJC builds drums that are as unique as your playing style. We're talking 25 years of handcrafted, made in the USA drums with killer tone, crazy attention to detail, and designs that turn heads. You've seen them on tour with bands like 21 Pilots, A Day to Remember, Sum 41, Knocked Loose, Rancid, and more. Now it's your turn. Hit up sjcdrums.com to start building your dream kit, or check out their ready-to-ship snares and accessories. That's sjcdrums.com. Built with passion, played with purpose.
Obviously, like the 1 up, 2 down configuration, that gets it done. Talk to me about kind of why you picked this configuration to get to where you got with those drum parts.
The answer to this is super simple.
Yeah.
Silverchair.
Silverchair.
This is what Ben Gillies did. My first drum set ever, which is like a Pearl Export or something. I remember, of course, I knew nothing about drums. I had my dad help me like go to a music shop. My dad was a doctor. He knew nothing about music either. We go to a drum shop and we ask for a Pearl Export, and I'm like, I would like 2 floor toms. And they're like, okay, well, it doesn't normally come in this configuration. I think it's called the hard rock configuration. And so they special ordered it for me. It wasn't until months later I realized that I don't know if it was I think it was a 14 and 16. The extra tom they ordered wasn't even the same finish. It was like the piano black export was how it came, and then the extra tom they ordered was like a smoke gray. I didn't care because I got 2 floor toms, and then I could mimic Ben Gillies, right? I tried putting 2 up like a lot of people do. It just never worked. I got so used to having the ride here, like kind of cheated in, that when I push it over on the side, it just doesn't work for me. And I never really needed like a 10 and a 12. I've always kind of gravitated towards bigger drums, so 12, 16, and 18, and it works for me. I use these floor toms a lot. I don't really roll all the way down to the 18. If I'm gonna hit the 18 here, it's like a support of like a big hit, you know, or it's like really supporting the guitar rhythm, and it just kind of makes it heavier.
Yeah, it's a dramatic drum. Right?
Yeah, it's almost like having a gong drum, but without, you know, as being as dramatic, I guess.
Yeah. Well, especially for like punk drummers, right? It's like an extra drum is such a privilege to have.
That's true. I don't have to like Ray Luzier with like Korn. I don't need gong drums or anything. I can fine with these 16 to 18.
Yeah, but you know, it's nice to have it.
Of course.
So we have 12. 16, 18.
Yep, 12, 16, 18.
What are the ply constructions of these?
So these are the SJC, just the M6, the custom shells. The story about this kit, I love to tell it, is this kit, it's a silver sparkle. You see now it's got all chrome hardware. Yeah. 2 years ago, this kit actually had powder-coated blue hardware.
Oh, wow.
Lugs, rims, hoops, everything, you name it. I loved the sound of this kit so much that when we were getting ready for this Offspring tour that we're on right now, I told Mike from SJC, I was like, look, I don't want to touch the kit, but I want it to look new. So how about we just kind of replace everything? And he's like, well, you can send me the kit and we could do it. And I was like, no, just send me the parts and I'll do it. Oh, and it was really fun. So Buck, my drum tech, and myself, we spent a day before we started rehearsals for this tour, and we stripped everything on this kit and kind of rebuilt it ourselves. But the cool story about this kit, these shells were hand cut by SJC himself, which is Scott J. Chapari.
Wow.
So him and Mike, brothers, they started the company. I don't know the full story of how Scott's involvement is now, but I know that he doesn't really do this anymore. And even when I had this kit built a few years ago, he wasn't doing the drums anymore. He kind of stepped away from the company. He heard what I had told SJC was I wanted a kit that looked like an old Orange County kit I had. So I was the OCDP guy forever until basically that company folded. And then I went over to SJC, and I had a kit in 2002-ish, like the heyday for us.
Yeah.
That was, actually it was 2000. It was before my super famous Aqua kit. I had a silver sparkle with blue powder coated hoops, exactly what I described to you. Everybody thought it was a Travis Barker ripoff because he had the same thing, but he had red lugs, I think. Yeah. Right? But I loved the silver sparkle. And I told Mike, I was like, I want you to remake that kit. And he's like, I would love to. I loved that kit, everything about it. This is why we kind of started SJC, was because of that era. When Scott heard about it, he was like, I'm doing it.
Wow.
And so Scott hand cut all these edges, and I'm telling you, I've never heard a kit that sounds as good. Like SJC stuff is great. Yeah. Of course, some of their stuff is a little more flashy than it is kind of like really good sounding, but they know what they're doing with all of their drums. This is head and shoulders above any other kit I've ever had.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing about working with Mike and everybody at SJC is that you get to go in with crazy ideas, and the execution is always like top notch. It's like you can have a way out of bounds idea, Donkey Kong, Jaws,
for sure,
you know, Back to the Future stuff, and you're going to get like a visually like crazy kit, but it's going to get on stage and it's going to go.
And you can also be me, who goes in and says, I want the opposite of Donkey Kong, the opposite of Jaws. I want something that's flashy in like a rap or a hand-painted thing. I want the drums to speak for themselves as far as the tones, because I want to be able to beat the living hell out of these things and just have them translate, and they support me with that.
Right. You're not going to get any less excitement out of Mike either.
No, of course.
You know, and like, just like Gold Sparkle, and he's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, and then he's got really cool ideas too. We did a kit like 10 years ago for anniversary of Sticks and Stones, and he put some really cool touches on there. I like sent him all the artwork for the layout, original layout files, and he put like little things like the badges were totally custom done. He did like fake grass around the hoops and stuff, and that's the cool SJC stuff.
Right.
But you know, for this kit, I just wanted it to be classic, and you know, it sounds awesome, and I don't think I'm partnering with this kit for anytime soon.
Yeah, cool. And then heads-wise, to get the tone out of them, you're running Remo Emperor.
Remo Emperors, coated Emperors on the toms on the top. I got clear Ambassadors on the bottoms, pretty standard for rock. Here on the snare, I have Emperor X coated. Bottoms, snare, hazy, Ambassador. But yeah, everything is very standard rock. I got a coated Power Stroke 3 on the kick batter. I've done clear before. It's always been Emperor. Ambassadors, I don't have the durability, because I hit pretty hard. Yeah. I've done clear Emperors. I've done the vintage Emperors, which are really cool.
Yeah.
They're kind of like a halfway between, a little thicker. But again, going into this Offspring tour, we're in amphitheaters, and it's just like as rock as you can make it.
Right.
And it's like, I just want to do that classic thing, which is these coated Emperors, and it definitely sounds good. One thing we didn't mention, and we probably should, is the snare drum is a SJC as well, and it's their Goliath. It's their bell brass. And so I have a couple bell brasses. I have some of the super famous ones from back in the day that I use on records. I got this right before a new record that we just finished, and I put it up and actually used it on like 2 or 3 of the songs on the new record. This thing is amazing. It's a 7x14, and it is a beast. It's got a crazy tuning range. You can kind of do whatever you want with it, and it'll take punishment, which is what I put it through every night.
The bell brass snares, man.
You can't go wrong with it, right?
Yeah, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's every time you hear one too, and especially in a room like this, just cracks through.
Yeah, for sure.
But in the best way, because it doesn't lose a lot of that warmth and like where it needs to sit in the mix.
Exactly.
Yeah. Goliath. That's sick. Cool. Well, speaking of brass, let's talk about the brass around the top. We got Zildjians all around.
Yeah.
Start left and let's go around the horn.
Shiny Zildjians.
Yeah. Thank you, Buck.
Yes.
He was shining them up beforehand.
Thank you, Buck, and thank you, Eric and Kirsten from Zildjian, because they've always been super cool to me. All of these sponsors that we're going to talk about, I'm going to say that I think the newest one for me would be SJC, and that's like over 15 years.
Right.
Zildjian's over 20 years, Remo over 20 years, even DW Pedals and Hardware over 20 years. I am very loyal, and people will tell you that. And even Mike knows that from SJC. That's why it took me so long to go to SJC, because I stayed with Orange County, even though he wanted me to come over. So yeah, all my sponsors have been amazing. But like you said, let's start from left to right. So I use A Customs kind of wherever I can. I hate to say it, but that is really for the looks, because I love a brilliant cymbal.
Yeah.
Polished, it just looks awesome. So, and it also cuts through when your guitars are turned up to 10,000 like ours are.
12,000 today.
Yeah, A Custom Master Sounds, these are 15s. A lot of times I would use 14s, but I love 15s. They just kind of have, a little higher pitch, and it gives me a little more to work with.
Right.
I'll skip the splashes for 1 second. We have crashes. These are both 18 A Custom mediums.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was knocked loose maybe, but somebody, I'm not the only one who uses the same exact crash on both sides.
We just talked to somebody last week, and it's symmetrical.
Yeah, and so there's multitude of reasons, or multiple reasons to do that. One of them is it's symmetrical, but at the same time, they're never the same. I mean, there's some kind of a hand element to these cymbals. Maybe not all Zildjian cymbals, but to these cymbals specifically, no two cymbals sound the same. And Buck is great over there. He'll do things that even I didn't realize until I was talking to him the other day. Like, he'll listen to the cymbals, and he'll put up specific cymbals on one side or the other based on if they're brighter or darker, because it is musical to have a difference. But also then the practicality is, I just order 3 or 4 of these.
Right.
Yeah, crack one, you just put right, and you don't have to worry about, oh, now I got to go to the 19 and everything's off by a little bit, or it's a thin cymbal versus this or that. So yeah, 18A Custom mediums, I've been using these forever. I absolutely love them. Super thick, some of the most durable crashes that Zildjian makes. I wish they still made the 19A Custom medium. They stopped making it. I was using those forever. Please bring them back, please.
Camera.
Please.
There it is.
So splashes here, I got a 12-inch A Custom splash. This one is new. I've been using a 10-inch splash, like an A Custom splash, for a minute. I don't know if Eric messed up when he sent me, but he sent me one of these EFXs with the holes in it. Super cool. I'm liking it. I mean, it definitely stands out a lot more from just having a 12 and a 10 of the same exact, brand. And I don't use them that much. They're just kind of up there for a couple things that I do. So those are fun. That's kind of stuff I just play with, maybe. A Custom, this is a secret here. So everybody, if you grew up and were experiencing the 2000s pop punk era, everybody used a Sweet Ride.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not a Sweet Ride. This is a Custom 20th anniversary ride.
Okay.
It's a 21-inch ride. I went to Zildjian like 12 years ago after they did this 20th anniversary, and I was talking to them about the Sweet Ride and how I loved everything about that ride because I love to crash on it, and it's got a ride sound. The bell, to me, was tough. Like, I couldn't get it to really, there wasn't a defined bell because it would wash too fast.
Right.
And there was a girl named Emily that was working at the time there, and she was like, use this A Custom, the anniversary. And I'm like, why? And she goes, it's basically a sweet ride with a better bell. And I was like, you're literally answering my prayers right now.
Right.
And I took one and we played in Boston that night. And she had a friend that went to the show that, without knowing I took this ride, commented to her, the bell of that ride sounds insane, whatever he's using. And that's literally what I had gotten that day. And so from that day forward, it was the 20th anniversary ride, because it is basically a sweet ride that's a little thicker, but does everything that the sweet ride does.
Yeah.
And it's shiny. And it's got white, ink on it. It just looks beautiful,
It's
right?
a stunner. It's beautiful.
It is.
And we've talked a lot on the rundown about getting that utilitarian workhorse in a ride that crashes, that has bell articulation. It can be jazzy, it can be washy, it can be heavy. You're asking a lot out of a cymbal to do all of those things.
Yeah.
So when you find it, you like hang on to it.
Yeah, and it's on record. I have definitely put up like a real ride and then maybe this 20th anniversary or a sweet ride and then a crash. And I try to do that live, but it's a lot to carry 3 different kind of cymbals for this one side. It kind of gets pretty crowded there, right? So yeah, I love this thing. I will probably be using this for the longest time, probably until they do the 40th anniversary. Maybe they'll find some way to innovate. Last but not least, we got this cool A Ultra Heavy China, which is a little newer for me. But I was, and I still do use in the studio a lot, the K Custom Hybrid 19, which is an amazing China. Sounds, it's probably one of the coolest and just most perfect China sounds you can get. This A Ultra Heavy probably is the same, if not better, for me as far as the sound. The entire thing is brilliant, as opposed to being a hybrid where you get a little bit of the traditional. So selfishly, it looks a little nicer. And it can take a beating. And they have a 21-inch of this that sometimes I use, but it's 19 right now. And that's your brass for you.
Yeah.
Meet the Groove Series drum hardware cases from Gator. 2 sizes, 1 mission. Choose the 33 by 15 inch case for compact setups and tight car spaces. Need more room? The 42 by 16 inch model carries longer stands, no hardware breakdown required. Move how you groove. The compact case features a smooth telescoping handle and molded side grips. The larger size steps up with a built-in pole handle and spring-loaded lift handles that stop at 90 degrees for ergonomic carrying. Tough on the outside, smart all around. These cases use weather-resistant rotational molding for lightweight strength, while interlocking channels let you stack them with your other grooves gear like a pro. Heavy-duty 2-inch straps with high-tension buckles keep everything sealed tight, and rubber inline wheels make load ends feel like a breeze. The Groove Series from Gator. Let your hardware ride in style.
Cool. It's awesome. And what are you hitting them with?
So I have, and this is actually my first endorsement ever, was Vater drumsticks. So these are, you're not going to be able to read it, of course. But yeah, that's fine.
Roll here.
Yeah, there you go. So these are Vater. They're 5Bs, but they're nude. So that means they're just unfinished. There's no lacquer on them. A lot of people, it's a love-hate relationship with things like this. I've always struggled with my grip on a regular lacquered stick. For the longest time, I was using like, grips, actual like felt grips on sticks, and I hated having that crutch. This is still kind of a crutch if you want to talk about it, but without the lacquer, for me, I feel like I sweat a lot, and the sweat goes into the stick instead of getting slick.
Right.
And it just allows me to kind of, I'm definitely going to say that I know I'm a pretty hard hitter. And so this is one of those reasons. This is one of the things that allows me to do it. I should also point out really fast that Remo, I've just started using these crown control gels.
Okay.
And they're awesome. They're awesome. They're super huge, and Remo literally told me, Roger over at Remo, he was like, please cut them up because it's almost too much. Although we're still using kind of full ones on these on the 16 and 18, but they're great. They're a lot of companies now doing these kind of mufflers and stuff like that.
There's a lot of overtone control, kind of gimmicks and tricks and all kinds of stuff.
But it's cool to have a drumhead company recognize that so many people are using it and like allow you or have one themselves, versus being like super purist and being like, you can't mute or muffle my drum head. It's supposed to be open. And the fact is that sometimes having a little bit of control helps, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think especially when you're night to night, room to room, you want to give front of house as much as you can to get rid of overtone and stuff. And I'm sure that's what you're trying to get rid of here in the lower toms, is just get rid of like a lot of that kind of overtone and get it dialed in.
Totally.
Make it punchier and get it into the mix.
Natural gate.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't love gated drums, bro?
Let's
go.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
So it is interesting that you kind of split it, and you just kind of split it here on the snare drum. Are you just kind of playing around with position of wear and kind of how you want the drum to sound?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like a lot of it is also just functionality with these gels. Like Maybe in the studio I do, but live I'm not going to put them down low because I might hit them with the stick and take them.
Right.
And it's usually we put them in between lugs or try to kind of get them in between lugs. I'm sorry, I'm like a guy who's a sucker again for sponsorships and showing that I'm never going to cover the logo if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
I like the way it looks, man. I'm super stoked to have these relationships with all these companies, and I want them to be stoked that I'm using and trying to promote, their brands. To me, I feel like I've won the lottery because I got all of the companies that I grew up kind of watching other drummers get.
Right.
And I've never really had to settle, knock on wood, for, the second guy. It's always been, to me, the top of the top of these manufacturers.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
And in that conversation is always DW.
Of course.
DW rips.
Yeah, DW.
Such good stuff.
Garrison over at DW, I've known that guy for over 20 years. I should mention a lot of these sponsorships, Travis Barker and Daniel Jensen, his drum tech, were very instrumental in helping me out with, introducing me and kind of curating those relationships. Of course, I tell young drummers this all the time, I am very personable myself and very professional myself, and I never want these companies to feel like they have to talk to a manager, so they talk to me.
Yeah.
And, phone numbers, emails, whatever, I want to deal with them because, of course, there's going to be a better relationship if you're dealing as the artist yourself with the company rather than going through hoops, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be more apt to want to do things anyways. But, yeah, we go back to DW. I mean, DW is just a workhorse, and their drums are amazing too. And even Mike knows from SJC, like, if I'm in some random country and I can't get SJC, I'm going to DW because their drums are amazing. The pedals and hardware just speak for themselves, and I've been using this stuff for a long time. The 9000s, pretty much once they came out, I grabbed them, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9000's the thing.
And that's it. I just 9000 everywhere.
Yeah,
So
9000's on all of this stuff.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, so obviously been listening to you, watching you for a long time. Always wanted to ask, craziest road story of memory.
So I always struggle to answer this question because when people say craziest, it's like, well, define crazy.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of people expect, oh, you're in a band, so crazy is going to be like something that Motley Crue would have done in the 80s. And, we're not that band. That's probably one of the reasons why we're still here, after 30 years. And I tend to think that maybe we look a little better than Motley Crue after 30 years, right? Because we just don't party that hard, right? So when you want to talk about crazy, for me, what comes in is crazy in the sense of things I never thought imaginable.
Yeah, perfect.
Right? So like, again, we've been very fortunate. We were taken on tour by Blink-182, taken on tour by Green Day, that was their American Idiot tour. We're currently on tour with The Offspring. Like, we have checked off all of these massive things. With Blink, for me, crazy things, I remember there was a show in, like, I don't know if it was Vermont or something, the state fair, where weather was an issue, and basically Newfound, our set got cut. But what Blink said was, why don't you come up and play 2 or 3 songs on our gear.
Dude.
So here I am, this is 2001, and I'm playing the red, white, and blue kit. And it's nuts. I mean, Travis is completely different than me. He sets up different, all that stuff. It was so hard. I was so nervous. But just, playing on that kit was insane. I believe earlier that day I tried to sound check like Anthem or one of those songs with them, and I'm sure I flubbed it, but whatever. It's just kind of cool to do that. Another crazy story, for me at least, was when we were on tour with Trey Cool on the American Idiot tour. Of course, Green Day is blowing up at that time. And mind you, one of the nicest bands we have ever met in my entire career, one of the nicest bands, hands down. Super cool on that tour. Again, things were really happening for them at that time. So even though they were already massive, they were so humble about how big they were getting on that tour. Besides like the fun things like at the last show, Trey himself coming out and taking all my cymbals away except for a China. Classic tour prank, right?
Yeah.
I do remember, speaking of China, that after that tour, he was always asking me, what China are you using? And he's a Zildjian guy. And I was the K Hybrid Custom. I had just started using those. I think it was on Catalyst, which we had just finished recording. Mike Fasano, super famous drum tech, awesome dude. He introduced me to the K Hybrid Customs. So Trey notices that I'm using it, and by the end of that tour, guess who's using a K Hybrid Custom China? K Custom Hybrid China is Trey, which I don't think he uses anymore, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe I did a little bit of that. That's kind of cool that I'm influencing him when still to this day he influences me. So for me, that's the kind of crazy stories. It's just, either meeting people or being around people or getting compliments or even sharing the stage with some of these greats that it's like you don't get this opportunity rarely, if ever.
Yeah.
Right?
And to come full circle, you inspired me, my early days of drumming. you were right there. We're the same exact age, so I felt like I came up with you, up with these records. So this is one of those full circle moments of just, you know, and you guys are an awesome camp. We thank you so much for taking time today, because I know this is a very special show. Full band. You guys are super busy, so it's an honor and a pleasure to be up with Cyrus of Newfound Glory, man.
Thank you.
I'm Jared, and I will see you on another rundown.